Well, it's a Monday, and we certainly had a big weekend of sport in the last 2 days with some football and some rugby. But cricket's also on the agenda today, and we've got a lot to discuss. It is now, of course, time to take our weekly trip off to the boundary. And thank you all for joining us. Yes, people, welcome once again to the Coach's Corner, and you are in the company of yours truly, Manny Thangarai. Spell it like you say it like you spell it, and all that jazz. And of course, this is our usual Off to the Boundary show, which we normally conduct every week, normally on a Monday. Sort of the best time to do it because we don't really have too many football streams these days, although if we do have some football streams elsewhere on YouTube, we might possibly postpone it to a Wednesday, perhaps, or any other day. But it is what it is. I'm expecting a few people to join us, and I only hope that they'll be able to make it in time. We are, of course, coming up to the World Cup, and there have been several big series that have been taking place today. I mean, not today, but recently around the world, and just we're gonna focus on those series, especially given how these series are in many ways a good preparation for the World Cup and so forth. But before we join in, obviously, the sporting action that took place, the football was, not really good for Chelsea fans. And speaking which, we have a Chelsea fan in the chat today. Big up Hanno and panel. There's no Hanno, it is me, but the panel will be joining us shortly. A reminder to keep hitting the like button and sub to the channel. Definitely looking forward to the Cricket World Cup. It should be good. And we will be hoping to provide coverage as best as we possibly can, along with some analysis. And maybe for the final, if possible, we could do an all-day watch-along, but that is something that we will have to discuss as and when it takes place. And a KFC delivery, hello to you. Well, I already had some chicken before coming on to do the stream, but it was more grilled chicken. There is, of course, a KFC not too far from my house, and I am actually on the chat right now. And Coach's Corner, as you can see, is in the chat right now and taking a look at the chat on my behalf. So obviously, this is the Off to the Boundary show, and we are focusing a great deal on the World Cup preparations, and several of the favorite teams have been in action of late with different forms of preparation. We are, of course, going to start by focusing on the defending champions, England, who have been playing against Ireland. They actually had an earlier series against the Black Caps, of course, which was 3-1 by them. Pretty good test in many ways for their ability to defend the title. The only problem is they're going to be going into different conditions not too long from now. And in fact, they might be leaving over the course of maybe a few hours because they definitely wouldn't want to, succumb to jet lag. And they do have a warm-up game against the hosts, India, coming up on the 30th of September, which will be a Saturday. And no question of divided loyalties. I am hoping for England to win, but it should be a pretty good game and definitely a test of England's credentials playing ODIs in India. And of course, it must be mentioned that India's record in one-day internationals in India has not been good. But bilateral series is one thing, tournaments are another. And the last time England played India in a World Cup match in India, England very nearly won. And India, of course, were quite lucky to have tied that game. And it would have remained to be seen whether they would have gone on to win the tournament had they lost that game. But we are now, of course, going to focus on England against Ireland. And they were supposed to be playing a series of 3 one-day internationals. The first one sadly got washed out. the third and final ODI, a day-nighter, will be taking place in Bristol tomorrow. But the second one was, in fact, played on the 23rd of September, which was a Saturday. And I will, in fact, share the scorecard with you right now, courtesy of our wonderful friends from ESPN Cricinfo. Time, and that is the scorecard here. So obviously, one of the biggest controversies was the decision to axe Jason Roy from the World Cup squad. Sadly, the poor fellow's back wasn't healing in time, and Harry Brook was named as his replacement. And effectively, Roy was told that he wouldn't have a chance of being in the main squad. It was hoped that he would accept a call up to play in this Ireland series to get himself into form and possibly give himself a chance of being selected as a reserve, but he decided not to. And it looks as though, along with Alex Hales, who announced his retirement not too long ago, his international career could be over, and that could be the end of an era for English limited overs batsmanship. But when you take a look at the top of the order, you see Will Jacks coming in, playing an excellent innings of 94, very tragically caught out 6 short of a century. Sam Hain also coming into the middle order and playing an exceptionally fluent innings of 89 off 82 at better than a run a ball. A nice little breezy 48 at just less than a run a ball from Ben Duckett. Bryden Cars, I should say, chipping in with a run of ball 32. Salt at the top of the order, also, rubbing salt into Ireland's wounds early on. Disappointing outing for the stand-in captain Zach Crawley. Several of England's stars were, of course, rested for this series, including Captain Jos Buttler, former Test captain Joe, current Test captain Ben Stokes, among others. And certainly an experimental side, few of whom are expected to be in with a shout to make the squad, but several of them could end up travelling as reserves along with Jofra Archer. And so the batting obviously looking more than decent here. And Ireland's bowlers once again toiling manfully, but only George Dockrell with 3 wickets looking really good. Craig Young as well chipping in with 2 for 38. Wickets shared 1 apiece between Mark Adair, Josh Little and Barry McCarthy. And Andrew McBride going wicketless. So basically a case of Ireland toiling hard, working hard, showing some spirit, but not really having that, touch of class really that would make much of a difference. And Ireland's batting card looks quite interesting because once again we see top order failures and the middle and lower order chipping in quite magnificently. Sterling, who was captain, made a breezy 25, but then went out almost as quickly as he came in. Andrew Balbirnie, the former captain, didn't last too long. And then it was Harry Tector, Georgie Dockrell, and then Barry McCarthy, Craig Young, and Josh Little, who added a lot of respectability to the innings before eventually being skittled out for 286. And here the English bowling makes for some interesting reading. 4 bowlers taking all 10 between them. Shout out to Rehan Ahmed, who took 4 for 54. Future England spinner, definitely someone who could be expected to challenge the likes of Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid and maybe replace either one of them when they retire. Georgie Scrimshaw chipping in with 3 for 66 with his theme. Matthew Potts with 2 for 47 and Cass with 1 for 40. So again, not exactly a very dominant performance by England per se, and Ireland did show a great deal of spirit and fight, but it was effectively too little too late by the time they were hitting out. And it was only a matter of time before England got the wickets they needed. Huge shout out to Josh Little and Craig Young for that fine partnership of 55 for the final wicket. One of the biggest in the innings, in fact, probably the biggest. Yep, definitely the biggest. And also a fine partnership of 43 for the 9th wicket between Barry McCarthy and Craig Young. And so certainly a lot of hitting from the tail enders. Not very happy reading for the bowlers in that respect, who bowled well, only to see some of their figures go for a bit of a toss. just like the way their bowling was effectively tossed up and was hit out of the ground for some boundaries. But decent win for England, and they can certainly look forward to a good tournament. And we do have a guest. A very warm welcome to Mr. B for Life from the Beehive Football Chat, but a huge cricket fan. Sorry you came in a bit late, mate, but you obviously must have heard me talking about the England-Ireland. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. I don't know if you were able to follow that very much. Not too sure if playing against Ireland is necessarily the best way to prepare for a trip to India. And of course, they do have the third ODI, which will be taking place tomorrow. And almost immediately after that, they come all the way over here to my neck of the woods and have a warm-up game on the 30th. Not necessarily ideal preparations, and let's not forget the infamous Delhi belly. Yeah?
Yeah. Anyway, great to be on here, Manny. And I'm actually away at the moment. I'm in Devon at the moment, but I managed to catch that match yesterday, England and Ireland. So it was easy, really, wasn't it? Got a bit of a cruise for England, really, yesterday. Ireland are some decent players they got, but they're not special, are they? So we had all the better players at the end. Our class shone through, really, didn't it? In the end, so
yeah. And I was actually talking a little bit about how some of the young players got in. I was also mentioning Jason Roy. Obviously, we did in the last episode speak about Alex Hales retiring from international cricket. It looks as though with his non-selection for the World Cup squad, Jason Roy's career could be over. It was hoped that he would accept a call up to the squad to play against Ireland, but he rejected that. It looks as though he could be his international career could be over. But when you take a look at the likes of Will Jacks, Phil Salt, Sam Hayne, and of course Ben Duckett coming in and performing quite well, the future of England's batting looks quite bright. Maybe it's the bowling that could be a cause of worry, perhaps.
Yeah, there's still some issues there with some bowlers. I mean, we have got sort of some decent spinners. Obviously, that Rian Ahmed, he looks a talent. Always rated him. He looks pretty good. So, we have got something there, and also got a few quick bowlers. You can see we got a bit of an, we're quite a big option there of quick bowlers with this Cast that's come in. He's fairly sharp, isn't he? About 90 odd he bowls. So. There is some talent there, and the young talent is, it's good to see, isn't it, that we got it all coming through. The next lot, the next Joe Roots, the next who else can we say, Stokes or Butler or whatever, to come through the ranks, So it's good to see, mate,
Yeah, I agree, and I'm glad you mentioned Joe Root there, because obviously the New Zealand series saw Stokes and Butler play their way into form, but Root's form is a bit of a worry. And the thing which worries me about Joe Root is that he's always been the type of person who has been able to churn out runs, especially at test level, by shutting off all the noise surrounding him and just concentrating on his game and playing really well, and the runs have been flowing. But at one-day level, I actually believe that this could very well be his final one-day international tournament for England, because he is a part of the squad. I just don't know if a guy like him has much of a place in the team anymore, but certainly his form is a worry. Do you think that he will find a way to get it together? Because I'll tell you what, his test batsmanship is quite peerless, and he really gets into the groove. But when it comes to one-day cricket, I think you might need to just put your foot on the pedal a bit more, and maybe there's some. I don't know. Does he feel confused about how to play, or what's the story with him? What do you think it is?
Well, I actually thought he'd given all that up, the T20s and the ODIs. I thought he wasn't concentrating on that anymore. It's mainly test matches. So I'm a bit surprised he's still playing in these, and his form is suffering, isn't it? It don't seem at his best at the moment. There's something wrong there. So I don't know what the issue is, but he obviously isn't, up to it at the moment. So with the World Cup coming up, maybe he might have to be omitted. And I thought Brooke was coming in for him anyway, wasn't he, Harry Brooke? But I don't know if that's still happening.
Brooke ended up Brooke is in the squad, so we're just going to take a look at the squad that has been selected for the World Cup, if I can just find it. Obviously, I'll have to go to the team news to see that in detail. But Brooke actually is in the squad, but he was a replacement for Jason Roy. And the bowling surprises me a bit. Yeah, the bowling surprises me a little bit because we've got 3 left-arm seamers in David Willey, Reece Topley, and Sam Curran, who's more of a bowling all-rounder as well. And I know that Curran has done really well for his franchise teams in the IPL, but 2020 franchise games and one-day international games are chalk and cheese. And so I'm just wondering, I just don't know if we necessarily have the bowling attack that could really trouble many batsmen in that in the tournament. I mean, Moeen Ali is definitely more than useful as an off spinner, but then on those Indian tracks, off spinners are easy meat for some really good batsmen, especially those who can play spin. Just dance down the track and give that ball a whack, or as Mike Gatting did, just sweep it away and the runs come your way. So we do have Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid in the squad, so Ryan Ahmed will have to wait for his chance. But again, I'm just trying to find the squad in question. I just don't know if, as I said, I just don't know if we have the bowling to be able to back it. And even with the batsmen, are they more than capable of playing spin, especially since we've got a warm-up match against India coming up very soon?
Well, I don't know. I think there are some good players of spin. I mean, Stokes is obviously a great player of spin, isn't he? There is some good ones. I thought Brooks supposed to be pretty good against spin. So, I mean, there are some good ones, and obviously Jacks, isn't he, a good player of spin? I believe. So, I think they'd be okay. Sorry, go on, mate. Sorry.
Mate, listen, Jack's been in the squad, and I actually do have the squad right now. I'm going to share it with you right now. So, so this is the sort of 15 that was selected. This is the 15 that was selected at the time, and it could be subject to change depending on injury. So here is the squad. Here are my issues. I mean, obviously, Bairstow and Mallon at the top of the order will be expected to, provide some of the fireworks. And then you've got Root, Stokes, and Butler in the middle order. Butler opens for England in the T20s, but I think he prefers to sort of come down the order. And then obviously you've got Brooke and Livingston, who can definitely give the ball a good bash in the middle order. And then Ali is certainly an all-rounder. Rashid, more of a bowler, but he can hold the willow. As I mentioned, Sam Curran's an all-rounder of good promise. So the left-arm seamers work really well in Australia. I'm not too sure about India. I mean, the batting's fine. It's the bowling that worries me. I don't see Chris Jordan in here, who could have at least added some experience. But, Wood and Wokes are probably experienced enough. And then you got Atkinson in there, who is expected to add an option. It seems to be a little bit light on experience of playing in Indian conditions. And that's what worries me a bit, perhaps.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, in India, as you say, those tracks are like roads, really, aren't they? They're very flat, and they're easy to whack a hit to get on there, isn't it? Unless you've got a really top-class spinner, which obviously India have. They've got these really top-class spinners, and probably Pakistan. A lot of those Asian teams obviously seem to have them, don't they? So if you've got a really canny, wily spinner that knows what to do on them sort of tracks, then it's fine. But if you've got, obviously Rashid, Ali are capable on those sort of tracks, aren't they, as well? So, as you say, I think it'd be okay, maybe, but I think we've got plenty of players that can tee off, that can hit big, as you say, Butler and Livingston and Stokes, and if Root does get it together, he can hold it that innings together, and they all play around him, wouldn't they? Because that's the thing with Root. If he gets going, he can knock it, manipulate the ball around, and the other players around him will smash big, wouldn't they? Hit it big. So, it's if he gets into form, it's whether he can get into form, and he's not even playing against Ireland. They got him out of the island against Ireland, didn't they? So out of that squad. So it's going to remains to be seen if he's going to be good enough at the moment. So
yeah. I mean, obviously, form is temporary, class is permanent. But as I said,
yeah,
my guess is that this will probably be his final ODI assignment with England, Joe Root. He's probably going to look to concentrate more on playing Test cricket. And I'll tell you what, he's still 32, still playing brilliantly. Not only will he smash Alistair Cook's England record, I actually believe that he will end up as the highest run scorer of all time in Test cricket. Sachin
definitely.
Tendulkar, I'm sorry, but your record is under threat.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you there, man. I think he is capable of all that. I mean, he's still got a few years left, hasn't he? So he's more than capable of producing that. Maybe, obviously, in the tests. I think, as you say, the ODIs and the T20s will be that for him after this. I think that's it. So, but he's still
Exactly.
class, as you say. He's a magnificent player. He's been like that for England for years now. So, can't get rid
Right.
of him just yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm just going to take a look at the comments before we go to the next topic. And yeah, Canada was a bit of a surprise in the World Cup. I do remember seeing them play in 2000 and I want to say three. They certainly had a good outing then, and
Yeah,
more,
Chelsea,
pleasantries.
man. Not mate.
2011. Yeah, 2011, obviously, I think they also played. I don't remember seeing them do very much there, but I'll have to look up the archives and tell you. And yeah, I can tell you more. Hanno obviously was much too young then. And
Yeah, he was.
yeah, I mean, whenever Canada have qualified, to be fair, they've certainly looked to play some decent cricket. I think one of their best players was an Aussie named John Davison, who I believe was born
I
in
remember him.
Canada.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was born in Canada, but played most of his cricket career in Australia. Was sort of raised in the Australian format. Declared his availability for Canada and honor of scoring one of the fastest World Cup centuries for Canada in that 2003 tournament. So pretty good fun. And of course, to answer your question, it was India who won that World Cup. And KFC Livery confirms that. And just to be very clear, the series is not yet over because the first ODI was washed out. England won this for first, the second ODI. There is one more ODI to be played, and that will be at Bristol, a day-night game. And
yeah.
I think that should be available on Channel 4. So I wonder if you're going to take some time to watch that. Because obviously, you lot are playing us in the Carling Cup on Wednesday. If
Oh,
you get
yeah.
some time to watch that, why don't you check that out, yeah?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I'm supposed to be doing previews for that. The match against you in the Carabao Cup. So, but obviously there's, as you say, the cricket's on as well. But yeah, so there's a lot going on at the moment. So obviously I'm away, so it's not as easy to do these streams at the moment. But I'm trying to get on. It's touch and go whether I can make this tonight, mate. I nearly didn't come on here, so having
Yeah,
issues with
well,
stream well. So
yeah, well, thanks a lot for coming anyway, and at least I've got some
that's all
company.
right.
Obviously, there's some question was dealt with. Gus Atkinson, the newcomer, Topley and Willie. I do believe that there are better bowlers for England. Obviously, with Ashes heroes Chris Woods and Wokes and Mark Wood in the squad, it is expected that they will probably be the first choice bowlers. I can see possibly Sam Curran coming in as first change if they want some variety. And like I said, the big problem with the left arm seamer bowling in India is that unless you get your line and length spot on, you can expect to be hit around the park. And India actually do have a pretty decent left arm seamer in Arshdeep Singh. I just don't know if he's in the squad. And obviously, over the last 10 years or so, India have produced the likes of Zahir Khan, Ashish Nehra, and a few others. Khan obviously has been one of India's greatest bowlers and certainly had the ability to
Yeah,
swing the ball really well. The only problem is that unless you pitch it up at times, you just don't get the wickets. And bowling fast on these Indian pitches will definitely be a big challenge. So there's a part of me that thinks that Topley and Willie might not really be able to handle it. I hope I'll be proved wrong, but I think someone like a Chris Jordan would have added a bit of experience. But maybe, whenever he's played in the 100, I don't know if you've been following that, Mr. B. Maybe Jordan hasn't
Oh
exactly
yeah,
been.
yeah, I've been watching it. Yeah, it's good. The 100.
Maybe,
I watched it the
but
first
maybe Chris,
season. When it first came on, I watched it then as well. It's very exciting, isn't it? The men's and the women's, both good. So
yeah, I mean, with the 100, who needs the IPL? I mean, I was never a big fan of the
yeah,
IPL. I thought it was a bit too, glitzy, too slick. And it was really only a riposte to another league that was proposed, which actually was not so pretentious, but also did a lot more to try and bring more younger players from India into the game and give basically a lot of these retired internationals a chance to act as mentors more than anything else. But, that's a topic for another day. I don't want to get into that. But maybe Chris Jordan hasn't exactly been setting the turf alight, so that's one of the reasons why he might not have been picked. But you never know. I think I do remember him in England's T20 squad in Australia when he came in as a sub and performed a really good role in the semi and the final. So that's the thing about limited overs cricket. If there are any injuries, anyone can come in at any time, and I think that's the beauty of it. And I think football's World Cup can learn a bit from that, eh?
well, yeah, definitely. But will they? That's the thing. Doubt it.
Yep, that's the
but
problem. They just won't. They just won't.
no,
So, on that note, we're probably going to take a look at the second topic right now, which is, of course, the India-Australia series. India, of course, are hosting the tournament, and Australia
yeah,
have their proud World Cup history. The only problem is the series, the ODI series between them has not gone to plan. They
no,
played two ODIs already. The first one at Mohali on the Friday, the 22nd of September, and the second one was, I believe, yesterday, the 24th. And it was effectively a case where, and this is where we see the issue of foreign bowling attacks coming a cropper in Indian conditions, because I'm going to share this first scorecard with you, and we
right,
can sort of analyze this. And if you can see over here, Australia had the chance to bat first, and several of their batsmen got starts but couldn't really
yeah,
kick on. David Warner, top scoring with a good 52, should have looked good for a century, but never really went any further. And even with the worrying thing is that even with the likes of Pat Cummins and Stephen Smith and Marnus Labuschagne and a few others coming back in, the batting and bowling still hasn't really clicked, as we're going to see. Smith, of course, doing quite well with a 41, but India just kept picking at them and picking
yeah,
at them and picking at them. And special mention must be made to the veteran Mohammad Shami, who took 5 wickets for 41. And that's the nice thing about ODIs sometimes, is that you can, as a bowler, you can be hit for runs, but if you end up taking the wickets,
yeah,
you end up, having the last laugh. Bumrah as well picking up one, and Ashwin Ravichandran coming back into the side with a wicket. Now, there is, of course, a doubt as to whether Akshar Patel can play in the World Cup because he has a small injury. And I remember
yeah,
saying that it was rather stupid, in my opinion, that India didn't seem to have a recognised off spinner, but instead they had 3 left arm spinners in Patel, Ravi Jadeja, and also Kuldeep Yadav, who's actually more of a left arm Chinaman bowler. You think of someone like a Paul Adams or a Michael Bevan in days gone
yeah,
by, or even with the Middlesex connection, our very own Dennis Compton, who, of course, as you
yeah, yeah.
know, Steve, starred for Arsenal as well, and his grandson also
Oh
did
yeah,
play for
yeah,
England, as
no,
you
yeah,
mentioned. Yeah, and
yeah, that's right.
now,
Yeah,
coming back to the Circuit Centre, we see the Indian batting, really doing what they need to do. An excellent partnership of 142 between Gaikwad and Gill at the top of the order, and also Captain Rahul chipping in with an important half century. A little bit too slow for his liking, but obviously he held it together after the openers got out. And then you had Sky, Surya Kumar Yadav coming in with a breezy half century, and that
yeah,
took India home. And then you see here, apart from Zampa, who took 2 wickets but was also expensive, none of these are bowlers. I mean, Cummins and Abbott did have a wicket each, but none of them really got to grips with the Indian conditions. And it was also a similar story in the second ODI, as we will see. I despise these advertisements whenever they come up. I'll just stop sharing for a minute. And yeah, we'll take a look at this one. And yep, and I'm just going to share this with you right now. Hold on a minute, please.
Right, mate.
Yep, and right, so the second innings, effectively, the Indian batsman went completely, hell for leather. 2 centuries at the top of the order for Gill and Iyer. Another half century for Captain Rahul, and Sky once again showing that not even the sky is his limit. Almost a strike rate of 200 for him. And again, the Australian bowlers not getting to grips with the conditions at all. I believe Cummins, for some reason, didn't even play in this game. He decided to give himself a rest. And only Cameron Green took a couple, but he was carted for 103. 91 for Sean Abbott of his 10. Hazelwood and Zampa going for 60 odd off their 10. And Spencer Johnson, this new fella, went wicketless in his 8 overs for 61. Even Matt Short had 2 overs for 15, which weren't really effective. And once again, the batting, we see Warner playing himself back into form and looking really good, but just not being able to continue. A golden duck for Steve Smith. Labuschagne not really doing too well. Sean Abbott, surprisingly, wielding the long handle brilliantly with breezy 54. Hazelwood chipping in with a third 23, but it was just too little, too late. Kudos, of course, to Abbott and Hazelwood for that fine partnership of 77 for the 9th wicket. And it just goes to show that, sometimes when you're a lower order batsman and you have nothing to lose, all you have to do is just say, to heck with it, I'm going to hit out, just use the long handle, and it works a treat. Several of our English batsmen of years gone by, the likes of Darren Gough, even Gus Fraser would be of that ilk. Of course, less said of Alan Mullally, the better. But again, with regard to India, 3 wickets each for the spinners, Jadeja and Ashwin. Ashwin bowled magnificently for his 3 for 41, and I definitely want to see him in the squad because they need an off-spinner to sort of balance everything. He, Jadeja and Yadav should be...
He bats as well, doesn't he? Ashwin bats as well. It's good with a bat.
Yeah. Decent lower order batsman. And ashes to ashes and dust to dust. If the seamers can't get wickets, the spinners definitely must. So that's how it is with India. But again, you've seen now, Mr. B, that the Aussie bowlers, obviously, apart from Cummins and Stark and maybe 1 or 2 others, not many of them are really of that world-class level. But to see them struggling on Indian conditions, it just makes you wonder, will they be able to get things together when the tournament starts? Because they're going to have to really work hard to find a decent combination that can take wickets on those pitches.
Yeah, well, to be honest, man, I'm not really going to feel sorry for the Aussies because they've dumped on us enough times, mate. So I can't really say I do feel that sorry for them. And it's good to see them struggling, to be honest. Now they know how it feels, don't they? When it's happening to them.
Mate, I share your sentiment. I mean, in 1987, they beat us by 7 runs in India. Steve Waugh got Mark Gatting out, and that was the end of that. But keep going.
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, I thought they had a big, massive squad to choose from, a load of, obviously, an influx of other bowlers to come through. I thought they were well off, Australia, for bowlers and everything, really, batsmen. When you think of how much talent they produced over the years, obviously the likes of Clark and Warne and all that, and the Wars and the, everything. They had so much, wicket keepers. They've got great wicket keepers, that can bat. So I just, I don't know really, mate. But I think it's good in a way that they're struggling. They can't take the mick out of us anymore, can they? Because they're in a bad, shit way as it is. So sorry for swearing again, but they're in a bad way as it is at the moment. So, but I'm not that bothered. Who cares about them?
I don't expect you to be bothered, mate. I mean, I tell you what.
Yeah.
Seeing them fail to qualify qualify for the semi-finals of the T20 World Cup on their home turf was something that really, really was a little bit funny in a way. To think that they dropped Steve Smith for most of their games and thought that they had the answer under Aaron Finch's captaincy and a few other occasions. They completely got humiliated, and it is going to be difficult to see how they do because obviously Finch is retired, and I think Warner might also be coming close to the end of his overall career. I think he's made it crystal clear that he would like to retire from Test cricket at the end of the Australian summer, so he should have a home test in Sydney against Pakistan as some, reward if he continues to do if he continues to rather happens to everyone. If he continues to improve himself and play himself furthermore into form, I don't see any reason why he can't end his career on a high note. But there don't seem to be too many players coming in to replace him, and you pretty much outlined that concern very well. One player who could come in is the left arm spinner Ashton Agar, who could get a chance now in the dead rubber third ODI, and hopefully, Australia might have a clear idea of who they should take. But if they're going to depend on Adam Zampa to try to get wickets for them on those pitches in India, when it looks as though he's going to be carted around by a lot of batsmen who know how to play his type of spin, then Australia are asking for trouble. And Nathan Lyon's injury during the Ashes has come at the worst possible time, eh?
He has, yeah. I mean, they relied on him. He was their master spinner, really, wasn't he? He was the one that really get all the wickets. So, now they've got to find somebody else, rely on someone else to do that. So, but as I say, I'm not really bothered about it, Manny. I'm glad they're struggling, I mean, who cares about them now, I mean, let's if we played them again now, played them in the Ashes now, we'd thrash them, I think, the way they're doing now. So,
I'd agree. I mean, obviously, the first two tests which we lost, I mean, Lyon was a big, character in both of those tests. Ben Stokes' declaration was poor, and I think we also, lost the second test with some pretty poor, cricketing decisions. I will never ever understand why, when we took the new ball, we persisted in trying to bounce them out. If you pitch the ball up and try and induce a mistake, you have a better chance of getting a wicket. But of course, Kenny Ken, wise old owl that he is, said it perfectly. With the new ball, you don't get that much swing. It doesn't swing as much as it seems. It's not a play on words. It seems a lot more. So obviously, they felt as though bouncing them out was the better strategy. But they could have tried something different. Maybe bowl a few bumpers, try to rough one side of the ball a bit to get some reverse swing. It's all ifs and buts at the end of the day, but as you said, I can't be bothered about Australia's struggles. Everything goes around in circles, and they're discovering that the hard way. And Australia, of course, aren't the only team.
They can start cheating again, Manny. Might help them, wouldn't it?
Maybe
all that cheating business again. Yeah.
Maybe, I get that. Of course, let's take a look now at Australia's Antipodean neighbours, New Zealand, who have gone into this series against Bangladesh with very much reserve team, and they are playing 3 ODIs. The first one was also washed out in the horrible Bangladeshi weather. It's the monsoon time. I know that only too well, and when it rains, it pours. I mean, you think that the rains are bad in England in summer. Don't even think of trying to come over here. You will. You can never survive this. You can never survive this. And even these, and even some of these northerners who talk about how they can adapt to the rain up in the north, whether it's Manchester or what have you, I dare them to come down here and try and experience, some time over here and see how they like it. But so this is the New Zealand Bangladesh scorecard. Obviously, several of these guys are not going to be in the squad. A few exceptions include Lockie Ferguson, the stand-in captain, and Trent Boult as well, who will be expected to lead the bowling attack. And Rachin Ravindra and I think Sodhi's in the squad. I'm not too sure. I'll have to look that up a bit. Allen obviously lost his chance to be in the squad by being a little bit inconsistent. And of course, with their struggles, they're going to sort of wonder whether they should have gotten rid of Martin Guptill as quickly as they did. But it was basically Nichols and Blundell who steadied the ship in the middle order with a good partnership of 95. And after that, it was just a few more wickets and some good runs from Southey, and Jameson also chipping in near the end. Ferguson also batting a 6 and a 4. And Bangladesh's bowlers also, you see Khalid Ahmed and Mahdi Hassan taking 6 wickets apiece,
Yeah.
but also being a little...
Mainly spinners, aren't they, Bangladesh?
Yeah, mostly it's their spinners, as you said, who seem to do well. They have had some decent quicks over the years, but the spinners have been the ones who have brought them a lot of glory and a lot of wickets. Of course, you can't overlook Captain Fantastic Shakib Al Hassan, who is definitely well on his way to becoming his country's greatest ever player. No questions asked.
Great batsman as well. Fantastic batsman he is, isn't he? As well.
Good spinner, but also a fine batsman in the middle order. And how they could have used his services for this match, because apart from Tamim Iqbal, who made 44 at the top of the order, it was effectively a case of wickets falling like 10 pins. Mahmudullah, the old veteran coming in, should have had a 50, and then nothing much else after that. And then Southey himself staking a fine claim with 6 wickets for 39, and it was as if the bowling attack sort of played around him. Bolt surprisingly going wicketless, but maybe there's a formula with regard to how to get wickets on subcontinental pitches, and we see over here that Southey is in fact a leg break bowler. Of course, he was bowling to the best Bangladeshi attack. I mean, the best Bangladeshi lineup as it is, and some of these Kiwis or black caps or whatever you call them have now got some decent practice for the World Cup. Actually, it's only 4 of them who are in the squad. So I suppose the 4 people who are in the New Zealand squad, and we're going to take a look at that squad and see who finds their way in. And obviously there is no Finn Allen, and Tim Southey might also not be in the squad due to having injured his thumb so horribly. He will need to have surgery, and he still has some hope for the World Cup, but the decision to whether or not to take him will take place in possibly a few days. Williamson, of course, coming back into the squad, which is welcome in some ways, but given that the bloke hasn't played too much in terms of cricket for a long time, it will be very difficult to see how well he can do. And I'm just trying to, look for the squad in question, and I will share it with you right now. But New Zealand actually do have some problems with regard to the makeup of their team. Some of their batsmen haven't been in form, and obviously Williamson was confirmed selected for the squad, and just taking a look and seeing, just hold on a minute.
I do like New Zealand.
I can't seem to.
I think they're a good team, New Zealand. They play in a good spirit as well, cricket. So I think they're a very good team.
Yeah, right. So I've got the New Zealand squad, and I will just share it right now with everyone. And obviously, every single squad that has been named for the World Cup will be subject to changes, given last-minute injuries or what have you. But thankfully, no advertisement here. So Williamson is expected to captain the team with Tom Latham as his vice captain. Conway, wicketkeeper batsman, and Will Young will be joining him. Glenn Phillips, of course, is the wicketkeeper batsman. All-rounders, they picked 5. Chapman, Mitchell, who scored that fine century against us in one of the earlier ODIs. Ravindra, Neesham, and the left-arm spinner Santner. And then, of course, Bolt, Lockie Ferguson, Ish Southey, Henry, and Southey. Questions, of course, over Southey given his injury. And of course, Williamson coming back in, it's not known whether he'll be able to walk into the team straight away. So Latham will be expected to don captaincy duties. But obviously, the reason why I'm now showing you the squad is it's quite perfect to try and experience, subcontinental conditions, although several of these guys have played IPL.
Are you breaking up there?
ODI international. Yeah. Can you hear me now, though?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I did say though that. I did say that franchise T20 cricket and ODI cricket are chalk and cheese. So it will remain to be seen how the other players will come and play. So with all of these problems surrounding the New Zealand team in terms of form and preparedness, how well do you think they'll do? I'm not too sure that they'll be able to go as far as they've normally done. And normally they'd be a team you'd expect to reach the semi-finals. And of course, last time around, for the last two editions, they reached the final. I'm not too sure that this time they'll have enough about them to go further. And that might be a disappointment because they are an enjoyable team to watch when they're on form.
Yeah. As I say, I like them, Manny. I think they're a really good team, and they play in a great spirit as well. They're friendly and they don't cheat. They're not like the Aussies, who are smug and arrogant and whatever. But they have got some talented players. I mean, obviously, as you say, some aren't performing. I mean, Southey might be injured. Obviously, he's injured, I think. But, they've got some very good players, quick bowlers. Lockie Ferguson, very quick bowler. And Bolt, of course, has come back, as we see what he done on his return to England against England. So, he really, at that top of the top bowler, opening bowler, he really almost went through England, didn't he? Single-handedly again. So, so they've got some good players, but as you say, they are struggling a little bit. I always thought of them as dark horses in everything, every tournament. They'd always take teams right to the edge. They'd always fight right to the end, and the fielding is fantastic. It's very dynamic in the field, always has been, New Zealand. So. Maybe this might not be a good one for them. They might say maybe get to the quarters or something. Is it quarters and semis, or do they do? Yeah, it's quarters and semis, don't they?
No,
they do them there.
No, it's not quarters. I mean, what happens is that the teams in question are going to be put into one large group. So each team is going to play each other once, and I believe it's the top four teams that will go straight through to the semi-finals and then the final. So it will be hard to see New Zealand, possibly go through. Especially, of course, when we played them in England, we were able to beat them 3-1, and they clearly have a lot of issues to resolve. But maybe you can't write them off. And I suppose this will segue into this particular question. We discussed England, we've discussed New Zealand, we've discussed India, we've discussed Australia. Another possible team to discuss is, of course, Hanno's team, the Proteas, South Africa.
Yeah.
An excellent home ODI series win against an Australia team that did really well in the first two ODIs, but looked completely out of sorts in the final three. And, Hanno was a little bit, I wouldn't say necessarily, apprehensive about their chances, but he did mention that they only secured their qualification for the World Cup by the skin of their teeth, which meant that they didn't have to play in the qualifiers like Sri Lanka and other teams did. And of course, we're not going to see the West Indies in that tournament, which is a crying shame. But, South Africa, of course, secured their qualification and since then started to work a bit on their game. And several of their players, including the likes of Bavuma and Markram, and you think of someone like a Klassen and a Miller, and even some of their bowlers. I mean, they've lost Magala and Anrich Norche, two of their fast bowlers who would be expected to play a big role, but their bowling does look quite decent. And among the spinners, I think they've two main spinners in Maharaj and Shamsi. Both of them left-arm spinners, but Shamsi is also more of a Chinaman type bowler. I like Maharaj a lot more. with regard to their batting, there's no doubt that they certainly have the talent to take them a bit further. And obviously, they've got a good middle order now with David Miller and a few others who can play spin. Obviously, whenever they played in limited overs tournaments, be it ODI or T20, their record hasn't been necessarily the best. But would you consider them to be potential dark horses for the tournament?
Oh, yeah, very much so. I think they got a really good chance. I mean, as you just mentioned, they got some very talented players there, all the way down. They got some, all-rounders. So they could go quite far, really. I mean, I think they're still a good. I mean, I think De Kock is he quitting? Is he retired, or is he still going?
After the tournament. After the tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, he's still capable as well of doing something, but I mean, there's there's plenty of talent there, so I think they'll be pretty good. I think they'll do well in this tournament. I'm not so sure they'll win it, but I think they could go quite far. I'd say India for a start have got a great chance of winning it on their own turf. So.
Yeah. Of course, one team which you would like us to call favourites for a tournament, but you just can't because they completely blow hot and cold, yes and no, in and out, up and down, as Katy Perry would say. Would they even want to play? That's a big question. As I said, the green and gold blow hot and cold. And of course, many of us will have followed the recent Asia Cup and noted their failure to qualify for the final, losing that nail biter to Sri Lanka. They seem to depend a little bit too much on some of their star players like Babar Azam, Mohammad Rizwan at the top of the order, Iftikhar Ahmed to come in the middle, and Shaheen Afridi with the ball, who definitely, if you've seen him in the county cricket scene of late, he's been doing some brilliant things. And of course, he would be expected to spearhead their attack. But if you take him out of the equation, as we found out to our good fortune in the T20 World Cup final, Pakistan almost don't have a team. And when he came back, he nearly had us on the rocks, a little bit like Wasim Akram did in 1992. But then we weathered that storm and went on to win. But recently, they've had some issues with their ability to take part in the tournament. And, they do have a World Cup warm-up game in Hyderabad, which will be played behind closed doors. But the big story, of course, is that it wasn't even known whether they'd even travel for the tournament. And I'm going to share this story with you because obviously, I'm not expected to speak about the organization of this tournament in a negative light, but this is the story right here. Pakistan squad eventually received visas less than 48 hours before flying to India. And normally you'd expect that the visas would be arranged at least much earlier than that. So,
last minute stuff.
So the Indian government approving visas for the Pakistan squad traveling to the World Cup less than 48 hours before the team is due to fly out to Hyderabad via Dubai. Not too sure why they're not flying straight, but maybe they're based in Dubai for some reason. I'm not too sure. Make it make sense. Whatever. That's another topic for another day. The approval came today, Monday, hours after the PCB had written to the ICC expressing displeasure at the delay in the issuance of the visas. And at the time they'd sent the email, approval for the visas hadn't been given. And the delay had already caused the Pakistan team to cancel plans for a pre-World Cup team bonding trip to the UAE. So they would have been in Dubai anyway, but it is what it is. And eventually,
Sorry, Manny. Sorry, mate. I was just going to say that can unsettle the players a bit, can't it? If it's all sort of last minute and they're not settled in, it can disrupt it, can't it? Their plans. So
absolutely.
I feel sorry for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and of course, matters had reached a head because working hours had finished in Islamabad. There was still no news of it. And despite regular contacts, eventually, because the controversy became so big, the government had to, step in. And so they're going to fly out to Dubai in the early hours of Wednesday transit there, and then travel to Hyderabad on Wednesday evening. Expected to play their first warm-up game on the Friday, so they'll probably only have about 24 hours to, get settled. I suppose for what it's worth, yeah, probably because India and Pakistan are in such close proximity. Conditions are not too dissimilar. So many of the players will be fairly familiar with the environment, but still, given that they have to travel via Dubai and then come, the jet lag is going to be a bit of a problem. I suppose, as you've said, Mr. B, it can unsettle them. But in the case of the 1992 World Champion team, sometimes adversity can maybe bind the team together. So it's all going to depend on how Babar Azam will lead the boys. The thing about Pakistan in these ICC tournaments is that, they just when you think that they can't amount to anything, they come up and surprise you and say, peekaboo, here we are, and we've won. And they have won their share of limited overs tournaments. And they've certainly proven that when they get it together and they get their act together, they can be, unstoppable. And one would think that in these Indian conditions, they'd be a bit of a threat. We will talk later on about an injury to one of their players, which could dampen their hopes. It's not Shaheen Afridi, thankfully for them, but another one who's expected to be a bit of a talent. But given how the green and gold, as I say, blow so hot and cold, it's scary. And now this thing, I just wonder whether or not we can actually see them, really producing some of their best cricket, because, it's one thing to say that this uncertainty and this disruption can bind the team together, but it's easier said than done more often than not. So, and obviously, given that they're so inconsistent and several of their players are also quite inconsistent, with the possible exception of Shaheen Afridi. Do we really consider these Pakistani players possible dark horses, or do we have to just wait and see how they do and then we make a judgment?
Yeah, it might have to be that the last option you just said there about waiting and seeing, but because I just think they're a team that can turn up on their day and really beat the best out of the best teams. They've done it to us enough times. They've done it to obviously even Australia and India and teams like that. So they're very capable, aren't they? So they've got some talent there, and mainly it's their bowlers. I think they've got the better bowlers than batsmen, maybe, but you just can't rule them out. No way. I mean, they played their best in tournaments, I think, as well. So just can't rule them out at all. But we'll see. They may just get to the semi. I don't know. We'll see, really.
Yeah, but I think as New Zealand found out to their cost, once they do get to the knockout stages, we just can't forget about how they did a T20 World Cup in Australia, because when they lost to Zimbabwe, they were done and dusted. And then it took that huge shock to the system when, I'm sorry, Hannah, I've got to mention this, a Dutch team featuring former pro Band of Merva shocking the South Africans and sending them home. And Pakistan just had to do what they had to do. Semi-finals, and then they ended up getting through, and then the rest is history. But I did mention that there was a player injured, and it is, of course, the bowler Naseem Shah, who will be missing the entire World Cup after scans taken in Dubai have shown that he's actually he's severely injured his right shoulder. It's worse than suspected. So not only will he miss the World Cup, he'll be ruled out for the rest of the year and possibly the Australia tour. Maybe he can get himself back to fitness for the ODI leg of that tour. I don't know. But this injury was actually sustained during this.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, is he the young quick bowler? Yeah, the young quickie.
Yes, he is. He is. He walked off in the middle of the 46th over during the second game against India at the Asia Cup. And that was on the reserve day organised for that game, and then was ruled out of the tournament. And this is going to be a huge blow for them.
Look good. So, look good bowler, exactly, I think. So,
Yeah,
That,
definitely a good bowler.
that's a
He
shame.
was a test specialist.
Shame.
He was a test specialist, but then he went on to become more of an all format bowler, and on
Oh
current
yeah,
form is one of the best, along with Afridi and Haris Rauf. Who, I mean, Afridi obviously will probably be the main person to spearhead the attack. He was replaced by a guy named Zaman Khan, and it will be very difficult to see who could replace him in the main squad in question. So he could be a potentially big loss for them, and Pakistan will end up having to depend a lot more on the likes of Shaheen, Afridi, and Hadis Rauf, and a few others.
yeah, yeah.
They will miss the likes of Mohammad Amir and Wahab Riaz. Their spinners might be expected to take on perhaps a little bit of the workload, maybe Shadab Khan and company. And again, it's a lot of these things which sometimes really make you wonder if Pakistan can do well. But that 1992 side also didn't have Waqar Yunus. They still were able to win because of Imran Khan, Wazim Akram, Akib Javed, and several other good bowlers. And of course, that was Javed Miandad's finest hour among the other batsmen. So maybe this will bring them together, but it's like, if you have a setback like this where an important player ends up,
Yeah.
missing the tournament, it can't be good for them. It can't be good news for them.
Oh no, definitely not. And he's very young, so that's really going to damage his confidence, I should think. Being out now, out of that. But he's got a long way to go. He's still young, so he can bounce back, which is good. When you're a young age, when you're older, it's much difficult because you're nearly at the end of your career anyway. So it's more difficult, isn't it, to bounce back? So
Absolutely, absolutely. So I've already mentioned quite a few injury issues. Norche and Magala out for South Africa, but we take a look at Sri Lanka right now, and I'm going to share this particular story right now because Sri Lanka, of course, made heavy weather of qualifying for the World Cup. They had to play in the qualifying tournament, and yes, they did win the tournament outright. But this chap over here, Wanendu Hasaranga, he is almost certain to be out of the World Cup after
yeah,
aggravating a hamstring tear over the past few days, and another guy's participation could very well be in doubt. Chamira is recovering from a pectoral injury, the chest muscle injury over here, and he can't bowl 10 overs without feeling discomfort. They've got their spinner who could be fit in time for the opening game against against South Africa on the 7th of October. But again,
yeah.
it will be touch and go to see who would, to see if he could be fit. But when you take a look at Hasaranga, prior to his injury, he had topped the bowling and the batting charts in the Sri Lankan Premier League, the T20, and it was also definitely key to Sri Lanka's World Cup hopes and crucial in terms of the balance of the side. And bear in mind that this side doesn't have the former captain Angelo Matthews, who's also a more than decent all-round in his right, but wasn't selected due to poor form. So with this, news coming in, this is also going to be a big setback to Sri Lanka's hopes. And normally, Sri Lanka are a team that has also had a fine record in World Cups, winning obviously in 1996 and reaching the final in 2007 and 2011, if memory serves me right. But of course, now a country which prides themselves on their limited overs exploits has not quite been able to get it together. And now with one of their key players out, you definitely have to think that this could be the end of Sri Lanka's chances of really going far in this tournament, especially given how they were blown away by India in the Asia Cup final.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and when you think, well, the players they've had before, the likes of Angelo Matthews and Lasik Malinga, they're very good players, top players they've had. Now it's, they're relying on one or two that are not, it's not a team made up of really big talent, a lot of talent, is it? So, they're relying on one or two big players and that's it. So, I can't see them getting very far in this World Cup. So I'm afraid that's it. With Hasaranga out as well, they haven't got much chance, I don't think. So, but
Absolutely. And, it could very well be that after this World Cup, there will be some changes to the side and maybe a few of the older players like the Test and Karin Ratno might be, shown to the side. A new team will be built. Again, we talk about things going in cycles, and we see most of these, juggernauts in the limited overs scheme of things going through peaks and troughs, and it could very well be that Sri Lanka will have to, work really hard to get themselves back to a respectable level before they can hope to compete. Obviously, the days of Jayasuriya, Atapattu, Sangakkara and Jayawardena, and even before that, Ranatunga and Muralidharan, Chaminda Vas, and several others. Aravind De Silva, Sanka Gurusina. You and I are probably old enough to remember a lot of those players, mate. So it's good to have you on as well as Kenny Penn.
Yeah. That's fantastic team back then, but not now though. I'm afraid that they haven't got enough. They haven't brought enough talent through, enough youth, players through that are any good. So it's tough for them, but they may come back again someday. Be a big team again. So it'd be good to see, because it's not a team I thought I'd like watching them. They were a good, entertaining team and played a good brand of cricket. Like obviously with the, as you say, Murali and everything they had, and they were superb. So it'd be good to see them come back again one day. But be good again. So.
It's a cycle, mate. It's a cycle. They're going to have to try and wait and produce some good players, and maybe keep one or two more experienced guys, and then see what they could possibly have. But it will take some time before they do become competitive again. And just one final piece of news before we wrap this up tonight. We've been on for about an hour and close to 10 minutes. The Indian women's team, of course, have won the Asian Games gold, beating Sri Lanka in the final, and we will just. And we will just focus on this because obviously with the women's schedule differing from the men's schedule, but most of these big teams have been able to field some really strong teams. In fact, India have had the likes of Smriti Mandana, Jemima Rodriguez, Harmanpreet Kaur captaining the team, and also Rajesh Gaikwad and Richa Ghosh and a few others. Shafali Vermal's at the top of the order. It was effectively two batsmen who starred in the Indian innings, and not only three bowlers really doing themselves justice. And the Sri Lankan batswomen never really got going, and it was all over bar the shouting. And 3 wickets, of course, for this youngster named Sadhu. So this Indian team obviously was a mixture of some experience and some youth, but because of the schedule working in favor of the women, no real commitments, they were able to field some strong teams, and India ended up winning. The men's tournament will be getting underway very soon. India won't have to play many of these, qualifying matches. In fact, they, along with some of the other nations, have got a bye to the knockout stages already. But they've also got a team of players which won't be expected to, play in this upcoming World Cup. Obviously, with the schedule clashing in this way, they can't be expected to, do very much. But we can take a look at the India squad to see some familiar names. In fact, India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka have got squads for the men's tournament. In fact, it's captained by Gaikwad, and Jaiswal is another youngster who will be batting on top of the order. Some experience in Shivam Dubey and a few others, but all in all, a very experimental sort of team. If we take a look at Pakistan, not any real names that really ring a bell. I think Kushdil Shah has played a few games. Kasim Akram is captaining the team, a young all-rounder, and Mohammad Hasnain. I think he was considered a replacement for the World Cup team, but he hasn't gone through. And as far as Sri Lanka are concerned, I can pronounce these names, but I wouldn't know anything much about them. So so definitely you see a lot of experimental squads over here. So no real sign that the men can take this seriously, but they probably can't afford to. And it is nice to see cricket make its mark in the Asian Games, and obviously in the Commonwealth Games in 1998, they had a tournament, in Malaysia. The likes of Australia, South Africa, and several others fielded some teams. South Africa went on to win the gold, beating Australia in the final. The only, major tournament they've won. But I think the big problem, the reason why you don't see this much of a global outreach in terms of cricket, in terms of being a part of these games, is that there are very few nations which really play the game and play it very seriously. And even the big nations, if they play, will end up, fielding very young experimental teams. And bear in mind that even for the Olympics, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland fall under the United Kingdom. Of course, Ireland can field a team, but they also have an option of calling some Northern Irish players as well. So those permutations can, be a bit of a problem. I'm not too sure we'll see cricket in the Olympics for that reason, because obviously there will be some limit as to how many teams countries can actually field teams, and it might not even get the viewership it deserves. Of course, it's too early for Paris anyway. But would you like to see T20 cricket return to the Commonwealth Games, for example? I mean, obviously, there's talk about whether or not the Commonwealth Games will be around. I think it should still stay, and hopefully it will. And so, would you like to see cricket back in the Commonwealth Games after that experiment in Malaysia? Well, it looks as though we've lost Mr. B for a bit, but this is going to be obviously our last topic, and I'll wait for him to come back, and then we'll end this stream. But obviously, I just want to thank every single one of you in the chat for coming and contributing. And I didn't even expect Mr. B to come on tonight, given his own Wi-Fi issues, but he should be able to, come back in the next 5 minutes maybe, and then we'll just end the stream, because I don't want to end the stream on a note like this. And someone in the comments. Yeah, we'll see you soon, and take care of yourself, Chelsea fan. Thanks to you and everyone else who was in this chat, KFC Delivery, and also to Hanno, who was, obviously pulling the strings externally, even if he wasn't able to join the panel. But yeah, so I think aside from this, we've had a pretty decent stream where Yep, I'm back. So obviously we've had a good stream so far, and we were talking about a few things, and I'm glad that we, got to talking about this. But I'll be happy to wait for another 2 minutes before he comes back. But if he doesn't come back soon, I will have to end this stream, because I don't want to be seen here talking incessantly. But it is what it is, I guess, and we just have to, roll with the punches, especially given Wi-Fi issues, which plague a lot of these streams, especially on my end. Irritating, but I can't do too much about it, you see. And yes, obviously the World Cup will be starting very soon, and it'll be in the beginning of in the first week of October. We will be having some warm-up games over the course of the next few days, and we'll be looking forward to possibly watching some of that and discussing that on the Coach's Corner. And as I said, we will be continuing to bring you some, analysis and discussion of the tournament as and when it takes place, and whether or not we will do a watch along. And yeah, I got a message from Steve, Mr. B. Sorry, seriously, internet issues are, causing him a bit of a problem. So I think I'll end the stream now. But it was good to have him on, and obviously, given that Steve is closer in age to me, he and I obviously know a great deal about how cricket was played back then, and the teams back then, and the players back then. and it was good to have him on. So we will definitely see you next week for another show, another installment of this series. But once again, thanks to Mr. B for joining in. Thanks to everyone in the chat. And it has been good fun, despite some of the Wi-Fi issues. But I do enjoy doing this. And hopefully we'll see you all again very soon. But until then, take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of this week. Enjoy the sporting action that's taking place. And don't do anything that I or our other panelists or Hanno wouldn't do. For now, though, let me just say thanks a lot for joining in. Take care of yourselves. God bless every one of you. And I am out.